Yo, yo, yo. How y'all be, man? Ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow airless mix of the pussy. It's me. We back at it again. Had an excellent time yesterday over on the Go Argo with the Coach channel. Right? King Rika, D Go Beer. Y'all know that's my boy. And shout out to everybody else who showed up yesterday. We was wilding out. That was absolutely insane. And as inconvenient as it is for me having these Thursday afternoon drops, I can't complain, man. I can't complain with what we got. You guys know how I am for how serious I am. The goofy stuff is just that's right up my alley, man. And that's all we got, right? Like we were saying yesterday, transformations and grown man throwing hands. So let's get into the next level. 1045. We're not even gonna get into the color pages. We're not gonna get into none of that. We're gonna get straight into this because for as much as we talked about this yesterday, there was some stuff I didn't really think about much until I read the reread the chapter this morning, and you know how it is, right? You get a good night's sleep, get over the recency bias and the hype and the adrenaline wears down, and I still feel the same way. I'm getting hype already, so let's get into it, right? First off, we got our boy, right? Oh, no, no, no. My man, one clap Kaido, man. Because it's one, and you're done, son. Now, we can't give him the super exclamation point version I normally give him because he was the one getting clapped this chapter. It was all about the she. It was all about that. But enough of the formalities. Kaido goes, yo, I thought you were dead, bro. And Luffy was like, man, I thought the same thing. That's crazy, right? And there's some interesting things that happen. And of course, there's some great content out there that I haven't got to watch yet. Usually that's what happens for me on the weekends, right? Uh, as far as his awakening and things of that nature. But we're going to get into that because I did notice some things that I'm like, man, this is kind of crazy. But anyway, Kaido and Luffy are having this small little back and forth. And then Kaido says something to the effect of like, well, it's pretty obvious that you've awakened your paramecia ability. And of course, the emphasis on paramecia, right? But something about what you're doing ain't looking right, homie. You looking really suspect right now. I was Zoan, dog. Looks very Zoanish to me. And Luffy just gives him this look like, you know, the whole Nani, which it's interesting because of course, shout out to another GOAT, right? Roger's base. He had put out a short, I want to say earlier this week or maybe the end of last week, where it was Luffy and Momo talking to each other. And it was back when Luffy was trying to tell Momo, you don't have to be stuck in dragon form. You should be able to transform back into just, your normal human form. And Momo asked him something, and Luffy was like, I don't know. I'm not Zoan. You know what I mean? So that's interesting, right? But Kaido was like, this kind of doesn't make any sense. And for Kaido, he's pretty smart. He's been one of the more informed characters in the series, except for what he does next, because I'm still not sure about why he keeps trying to do this, right? Because he tries to eat Luffy, pause, again. Now, from what we learned about Big Mom, wouldn't you think that Kaido would be aware if you ate another ability user that something would happen to you that's not that you don't want happening? Now we know Blackbeard can have more than one ability, but um, from what we think, right, a lot of people in the community think it has more to do with him himself. Now, personally, I've always thought it had something more to do with the Yami Yami because of its ability to already negate devil fruits. That means some of the negative aspects it could probably negate too. But it would make sense with the whole no sleep thing. But I just wonder, like, why would he keep doing this? Because this isn't the first time he's done this, and it's just that part's kind of odd to me. I don't think it's just a huge big deal, but it's just something I noticed. So it's just like, dude, why do you keep trying to eat another devil fruit user? This seems like something that would be bad for you. But he does it anyway. And along with the rest of the cartoon themes that we that we've got these past few chapters, Luffy basically tries to and break his way out. And Kaido's like, nah, this is not one crunch that you can just pass by. And again, he eats Luffy. And then we see go, who's that? And your boy Kaido. Basically, he's just what? Like he's about to throw up his lunch, even though he got all that, and he does have all that liquor on his stomach. So who knows? You know what I mean? But this man floats into the sky like a literal balloon, as if he's being affected by Luffy's awakening again. And remember, we talked about that last week. I wasn't sure if that was Oda just being goofy and artistic with Kaido's drawings, like with his tongue hanging out and the stars around his eyes. But now we see Luffy's abilities affecting him, which I want to talk about this real quick. Well, not real quick, but I just want to talk about. Well, actually, I'll get into that when we get to another section. What else Luffy was doing? I guess I don't have to talk about it now. But he inflates into a balloon. They float in the sky, and Yamagoat and Momo are tripping out. Like even Yamato thought, like, "Hey, does Kaido have a new form that I'm not aware of? This man had put on some weight, right? Like he been hitting the buffet like how Luffy be doing." But what ends up really happening is like, yo, Kaido's is tripping out. He probably thinks like I don't know. Actually, I don't know what he thinks. He's just like, how is this possible? You're the one that's supposed to be made out of rubber, not me. What's going on here? And then while Luffy is inside of Kaido, pause. He sees a pair of lights, and I'm guessing he assumes they're eyes, right? And this man reaches through his eyeballs and I got your nose. Escape Raketo. And again, Kaido with the like he's gonna throw up. And Luffy shoots into the sky. And I'm assuming it's making a noise similar to like when he's in Gear 4th and he gets cracked and all the air, comes out of his body and he kind of just goes, the old cartoon type stuff. And he shoots into the sky, into the clouds. Gomu no. And when he comes back out, he's basically the same size as Kaido. And that tripped me out because when I was reading the chapter, I couldn't see that part. I didn't see that until I was just like that's wild, right? Because all the theories about giantification and the 10x hat in Mary Joie of the previous straw hat that's existed before. Even though we never talk about the fact that there's two straw hats, so maybe it really is more of a symbolism thing, and like the straw hat itself isn't something crazy, right? But he's huge. Like he's really. I just didn't see it coming. I just it kind of it did throw me off, but I thought it was cool. So Kaido bites Luffy again, and then he's making the faces and all that. Goma no jump rope, and all I could think about when he was jump roping. Obviously, that's way before my time period, but like depending on how old you are, your parents remember where people went to the roller rink, and they had this one song I forget, but it was something double dutch, and they'd be like, "Do the double dutch." That's what I was thinking about in my head, like, yo, this man is like skywalking and jump roping at the same time, getting his Mike Tyson on, training, and during the middle of a fight, like on some Katakuri type stuff, and then Kaido's like Boro breath. And then Luffy falls out the sky. He's burnt to a crisp, right? A la Wile E. Coyote. And he almost looked like Brook in a way. I don't know if it was the hair or, you can't really see his hair, but the outline, I don't know. It just looked like Brook to me. And when he falls out the sky, like mid-air, right? He does a little old school, like on the who I was thinking about the most, because Hanna-Barbera cartoons, people always, I won't say they forget about them, but Looney Tunes is somewhat a bit more popular. But I was thinking about Shaggy and Scooby Doo. Remember when they used to run for people to make that noise? I don't even know how to make it. It'd be like, and they take off running. That's basically what he did on air. And then while he's running on air, it leaves a trail of fire. This fire thing is interesting. We're not going to talk about that today, but I just thought that the fire part is the Red Hawk is looking way more different. It's gonna these days based on what we're seeing right here, right? But that's what he did. He runs on air because y'all remember last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, when Kaido knifed Luffy off of Onigashima, and then he went into Gear 4, and it was almost like you were playing Smash Brothers, and like he used all of his jumps. That's literally what Luffy is doing. Like they're literally playing Smash Brothers right now. Like Kaido uses Smash Attack, but for whatever reason, Luffy didn't lose a stock. That's kind of where my brain was at, and he runs back to the rooftop, and then Kaido, while he's doing this, he goes into hybrid form, and he's coming down with Ragnaraku, right? And he smacks Luffy hard, right? And then Luffy does the whole, like we were joking about that yesterday. It was like some straight up full Ivankov, like that. That's exactly what his face did. And everybody below him, and this is where we're going to talk about this part about his awakening. It affects everyone below. I think it was, of course, Law, because he reads manga anyway. Kid, Chopper, Nami, and Otama, right? They all do the bug eye thing, and then some of the fodder that were below him. And I thought that was interesting because from our, I guess, this awakening is so much different than everybody else's because if you think about it, right, and I think this is where the special paramecia part may come into play. It just might be worded a bit differently, seeing as how he's not really technically a paramecia anymore. But no, excuse me. Don't y'all think it's kind of crazy how for a Zoan type, his ability is still affecting things as if he were a paramecia, right? Because remember last week he was able to turn the ground into rubber. That's not normal for a Zoan, right? That's what makes this crazy to me. And I, again, you guys know usually I don't watch content except for a few people, only on the weekends is when I really have time to go check out what people are saying and things that I missed. And this was not something that I don't think like people weren't really talking about to that degree. I just thought it was interesting for a Zoan to have paramecia, still have paramecia like abilities, because we don't see Kaido able to turn other things into a dragon, or or a fish for that part, like revert people back to Magikarp on some Monka type stuff. Like I think his is the first ability that we've seen do that. And if you even compare him to Sengoku with his Buddha, that we only got to see Shockwave from it, right? And how big that he like his Buddha form is compared to him, that part makes sense. But it's really strange to me that a mythical Zoan has the same properties as what Dofi was able to do in Katakuri and changing the environment also to rubber. So his fruit is very different compared to what we've seen so far, even with Awakening, right? Where, before, even shout out to my old video. You guys know I've been bringing it up a lot lately because it still kind of ties into it. Because one of the things I was interested in is how would him being able to turn other people into rubber be that effective, right? We just didn't know. And this is something that I've been talking about for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. But at least, on this channel, it's only been probably like 2, 3 years as far as discussing that thing, him turning people into rubber. And we had an idea that it was a possibility because of Diamante. Because his ability works similar, right? It can mess with your body in weird ways. And then again, like we were talking about last week, the fact that the cartoony effects were affecting Kaido, and then we see it again, like how he turned into a balloon, like we were just talking about, and then here, the people below him, where his awakening is affecting their facial expressions, even the fodder, the stronger character. So it actually does not matter how strong you are. We know, oh, no, we know he's the strongest in the verse, and he's aware of all forms of hockey. He's aware of how devil fruits work. Like so far, he hasn't, outside of what's going on with Luffy, he's probably not confused about anybody's ability, including Law's. Like he wasn't shocked that Law could affect him. He was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool, and then he kept it pushing. This is not something you can bypass. So when it comes to Blackbeard, right, he's probably the only person that can counter Luffy in this form to this degree that we're aware of, right? Outside of probably somebody like Aokiji and Akainu, because they have the ability to manipulate temperature. That's a whole different situation with them, as we talked about and before. So I was just really interested in that part as far as his awakening, because it's like we've never seen a Zoan be able to function the same way a Paramecia does, and it's just like this is really wild to me. Um, I don't think it's a lot of people's focus right now, but you know how it is. As soon as we all have a few days to really kick back and talk with each other and go over our own thoughts, I'm sure more people will realize that it is not normal for everything that we know about his own so far to be able to do something like this. Like even Yamato wasn't doing things that are like this. So this Gomu Gomu thing, I think it's special for more than one reason. Because you remember before I used to talk about with awakening, depending on how good you are at it or and things of that nature, or what type of ability you have, it might start functioning in a way where you can't tell, or it won't matter if someone's a producer or not, like what class they are. It won't matter. They'll just have to be able to basically do whatever they want. And this ability literally lets you do whatever you want. And I think it's cool because Oda was saying, like, he's talked about he's not just going to be able to just beat Kaido because it's just not going to work. Nobody's going to believe it. No one's going to buy it. He doesn't even buy it, and he's the one that writes the series. So I just thought it was dope. Like what's going on? It's cartoony, but it's still a serious fight. And what he's doing is really going to wreck people later. Because you got to think, right? Regardless if Kaido dies or not, regardless if Kaido's whatever happens to Kaido is relevant in terms of Luffy's ability, because for the rest of the series, again, with the exceptions of maybe Blackbeard, and Aokiji Akainu, and those type of abilities that manipulate people in that way, and to a certain extent, even Big Mom, because her ability is not something that you can necessarily bypass, or even Law, right? Because at the end of the day, Law's awakening will still be able to affect Luffy, especially because this whole doom da 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 the something I thought about. I forget. I don't know the name of the song, but the beat to Luffy's heart, right? The doom da da da. It sounds kind of like, I don't know why, but there was this song I used to hear it in movies sometimes, and even in commercials where it's like hooga chaka. Yeah. It almost has the same beat to it, so that's kind of like where my brain went on that. But remember, Law's ability can make things silent. So that means how Luffy is able to affect the area, it might be similar to the way Big Mom releases her conquerors through her scream, like back in Whole Cake. This might be something that it could, again, be a problem for Luffy in the future, depending on whatever happens between Law and Luffy, just in general, or him. I'm not even going to get into the, people still trying to kill my boy Trafalgar D. Like, well, Luffy's going to die and the Law can bring him back. No, 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 no. Gee, stop trying to kill the homie. I stop trying to kill the homie. He's not going nowhere, man. He told y'all. I say it like once every 3 months about Law. I'll take my place when the time is right. The man who's planned everything ahead from this time, even before we even knew he was in the series, he had plans, okay? But just remember, the contrast, like we brought up with Law's Awakening, if he could take Big Mom's voice away, he certainly could take away whatever this rhythm of his heartbeat or the drums of liberation. If Law really wasn't, a nemesis or whatever type of character you want to put him, Kroom is still a problem for Luffy. I don't think his ability would be able to cartoon, he's not going to be able to Toon Force his way out of that one. Like, Law will basically like, oh, you got Toon World up? Okay, that's fine. Mystical Space Typhoon, Galaxy Cyclone, uh, um, I almost forgot the name, Prankertops. Like, whatever it takes, we'll just blow Toon World up and we don't have to deal with that anymore. So just don't forget in the future that the Law's ability is still just insanely broken. And even for what we see from Luffy, I don't know, man. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But we got, what was it, the Ivankov thing. And then he pops his back after Kaido smacked him. I didn't notice it the first time, but I'm like, oh, his head literally went through Onigashima. So when he pulled his head back up, Kaido was like, he said something to the effect of like, "This is something straight out of a picture book." Now, probably what the Viz will say, they probably will actually say comic book, right, or manga or something like that, because we know that's in the series because of Law. His infatuation with Sora of the Seas, right, with the Germa Delta Sixu and whatnot. So I think that's cool that like even Kaido was probably reading manga back then, and maybe sometimes now. He's a goofy character too. Remember, Shoot on the Hake and all his different forms of drunkenness. So basically he tells Luffy like, "Yo, I'm cool. This is cool that you're putting on the show, but you still finna die, homie. I can tell that you're still finna die, and you can't beat me because I'm right." And then Luffy is just like, shut your mouth. No, know your role and shut your mouth. He was on that stuff. He like, yo, I'm far from being done. And then as soon as he says that, he proceeds to lose his awakening. And then he looks shriveled up, like on some what were they called, man? I live here and I'm from here. How do I the California raisins? Like he shrunk into a raisin, and his face looked kind of, I don't know. Maybe that's a picture, not just a goofy picture, but a lot of times with Oda, we know like pictures of people, right? Sometimes even people that he knows in real life that we're not aware of. Sometimes he brings that up, like, oh, I drew this character like this because it looks like this person. Like that's what happened to him. And then Luffy's like, yo, I'm beat. I'm tired. Kaido's just bugging out, like, dude, what are you? And remember, this is a very informed character when it comes to abilities and everything else we've seen so far in the series, to include Joy Boy, which I'm sure we'll still get in his flashback, that even for him, that's how fabled the Gomu Gomu actually has to be as far as this awakening. So, his whole Void Century thing and it going way back with Joy Boy, I can only imagine what Joy Boy was doing with this ability, right? He was just wilding out, just full on Bugs Bunny mask, every cartoon character you can think of, and ones I probably, Animaniacs. That used to be one of my, Freakazoid, right? Like just way out cartoons like that. And, I just it's I don't know, but Luffy, I think he said like he basically agreed with Kaido. He's like, "Yo, I'm finna die. Like this really is taking a lot out of me." And Kaido's like, "Hey, hey, hey, don't worry about dying, man. Go and lay down and take a nap, or have a nice rest." Because you put on, you did a good job out here. There'll be tales told about you, which that was going to happen anyway, right? For how all of you, and I like how you put the, of course, always to support the Viz. We always support the Viz here, and we'll see how that's translated. But I think Carter was saying basically how all of you have fought. And you know how I feel. If you said all, he was also talking about hailing it from the south side of Shimosuki village. It's the Sampaya de Santo Ryu. And of course, because of the parallel between Luffy and Zoro dying, and then we're seeing what's going on with Luffy, we know at some point we getting back to Zoro because of, especially when you think about Luffy says in this chapter about basically he told Kaido after he says, yeah, everybody's gonna know, like, you're gonna be a legend for what you did here, but you still finna die, right? And then Luffy's like, why do I even care about being a legend? And shout out to Woden Creative and Grace as usual for the beautiful imagery that we got from them coloring, right? The chapter, and just that was it is dope, man. Everything is just dope right now. I don't have anything to complain about. But basically, the editor's note said something about that Luffy was actually referencing Bing Saki. I don't think he knew that, but every time now with this Bing Saki stuff, it really looks make Brooks look way more suspect. And I don't mean that in a negative connotation. It's just that, like, man, he's the reason why we really, really know more about that song in the first place. But for Luffy to be spitting bars about songs that he barely remembers, it's interesting, to me, how important that song is now compared to when we first learned about it, right? Like, it's kind of funny. And he just says basically, when I'm dead, there ain't nothing left but bones anyway. She. And again, he's the main character, and yet his unique laugh is not in the story as much as everyone else's. So I kind of like when we get the she. It seems like more we hear it more than the anime than him actually saying it in the series. So it's just something little that I noticed. But Luffy has always been like that. If you remember in the beginning of the story, he was cool with dying in the sea. Like, oh, when he was in the barrel, he's like, oh yeah, I can't swim. Well, I guess my journey's over. Like so that the dying part was never an issue. The entire series, he's never cared about dying. You know, a lot of us are like that. You get to a point where it's like it's gonna happen anyway, right? You just want to be as in much control as possible and do whatever it is that you set out to do, right? Whatever it is that you believe in, because one day it's all over. Just like the series, one day everything's gonna be over. Just you leave it all on the court, man. You know, whether it be school, work, you know, you're bettering yourself, social interactions, and the people that you care about, how you treat people. At the end of the day, it's always gonna be over. So you never want to feel like you came out the game and you didn't do what you didn't at least give the effort, right? Or the failing is irrelevant. The success is irrelevant. The effort and what you felt about what you were doing and your intent, that matters more than anything else. And that is like the one of the fundamentals of Luffy as a character. So I'm glad that even with him changing and growing up, he still held on to the same fundamentals that he has the entire series, and it shows you that just like in real life, you can grow and still stay the same, right? You can still be yourself and still add things, right, to improve whatever you got going on or whatever. Not to get too whatever, but you guys know how I am about stuff like that. But Yamato and Mopo was like, yeah, nah, Luffy's really not like the voice. You know, they realize it's his voice because at first people were not putting two to two together that this is really Luffy and this is what's going on. And then we see Luffy in the stance, man. The legendary stance of Getter Sagando. Now we know it's Japanese, but to me, Gear Second will always be Getter Sagando. All right, that's just how it is for me. We see the stance. He doesn't say it, but that's pretty much what stance he's in. And I do like seeing him use the different gears as he's in an awakened right state. It's just wild to me. Um, but he was basically saying, you know, we're not done yet. Momo, Tama. And I think those two were put together on purpose because to me it's just I don't know if that's a play on words because of Momotaro. Maybe not. That's maybe just how I view it. And then he brought out Kinemon and Pedro. Our man Pedro. Shout out to Pedro, man. Shout out to Pedro, Pyro Treetop. Pedro. The man who's always in the trees, right? And then he awakens again. So now we know for a fact that now that he knows what this ability feels like because he starts messing with his heart. So it does seem like his awakening in Gear Second, which Gear Second I've always said was weird to me compared to everything else he does because it makes the least amount of sense. So I think that there's some tie in here with however Gear Second functions and clearly changing his heartbeat and you know what it'll do to him. I still think this ability kills you later on. I don't think this is probably why there's been multiple Joy Boys, right? Not just because of what normally happens in the series, but the people who've awakened his ability. The way it seems to work, and even what Kaido says about Luffy, like, you might be dying soon because of how much you're using your ability. Normally, Luffy using his abilities don't really do anything to him, with the exception of Gear Fourth. But I always assumed that was because of Haki. Even when he's not using Haki now, his awakening does seem to. There might probably going to be some drawbacks to this, right? Every power comes with a drawback, so why wouldn't this? And he basically tells his heartbeat to get loud again, and then we're back to the doom da 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 doom da da da. We back on that, and Kaido gets in a Barry Bond stance and cracks Luffy's head and we get a weird plunk, and the mace sinks into his head, and it kind of reminded me of Cracker and even Dofi, where they hit Luffy, and even though it was a lot of blunt force, it just sunk in, right? Because rubber can do something like that. We talked about that with the stickiness, right? That still hasn't come into play. Kind of sad on that, but hey, who cares, right? But rubber can do something like that to begin with, so it's not like something that makes no sense to me. It's just really crazy because Kaido swung really hard. Are we talking about Kenpachi's Rocky two hand, kendo? But Luffy cries talking about it hurts and his head is shaped funny. And he like kind of runs away from Kaido, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? And Luffy is known to run away in a fight, right? Like he did it with Katakuri, he did it with Lucci a little bit. Most of the time, it just seems to be something like he's trying to figure out like what do I do next? And then you still seeing the flame trail. So this flame thing is gonna pop up, right? And his head is still smashed in. He kind of looked like Napoleon, like when he's in the other form. And then Kaido struck him again. Luffy bends, but so does the ground. And it kind of reminded me of those carnival games where you take the mallet and then you hit the thing and you try to hit the bell and win a prize. That kind of what it was reminding me of. And then he crashed into the mountain. Then he says, beep, beep. 3, 2, 1, tres, dos, uno, cero. And windmills his hands. Shout out to Fuchsia Village, right? Pinwheel and all of that. And this is kind of crazy because it kind of reminded me of UFO. And we talked about even in my old video. What did I call it? What did I call it, everybody? You should know by now. The most useless devil fruit. The irony of that is still insane to me, how this is going. But Kaido mentions that he's pure white, and he didn't say anything about his colors before. So him combining, I guess, both hakis simultaneously with conquerors and armament, in addition to his awakening in this state, does he mean pure white? Like this is going way back, like black and white Looney Tunes, right? Even before Animaniacs, the characters that they were based on, if I remember, they looked like kind of like dogs, but they were people, almost like how Goofy is drawn. And I think they were called like Boris and Dot. I want to say I might have to look that up, but that's kind of how I'm imagining him. Like everybody knows about Cuphead now, but those type of cartoons from the old days, he the phenom from Fuchsia windmills and punches straight through Kaido's face with the Conqueror's coating. So I'm guessing he turned from Kaido's face to rubber on contact as well. So we know this hurt, and Kaido just falls to the ground. Before that, he was talking about the freedom, right? No, I've never seen nobody so versatile. And this is just, man, I could talk about this all day, man. But Kaido still says no one can take me down. So him falling like that, we already know. When he gets up, it's Hyakuju no Kaido time when he gets up off this ground. You know what I'm saying? But then Luffy says again for the second time, I'm having the time of my life, Kaido. And I wonder if Luffy knows he died already. And I wonder if Luffy's gonna think about the comment about the Zoan thing. I really do, because if he realizes it's his own one, I don't know if it's gonna matter, but I don't know, man. I just know this has been crazy. In all the series I've ever read or whatever, for a series that can be as serious as this, I never seen an ability like this goofy. Like I couldn't have made this up, and it's just perfect, man. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. We gonna talk again. I just wanted to chill and chat for a minute because I got stuff to do. Peace, y'all. Be